he asks about, have you heard of the holy day Purim? He gives a definition of that. Supposedly related to Akkadian Purim, a festival that commemorates the deliverance of the Jewish people living throughout the ancient Persian Empire from a plot by Haman the Agagite to annihilate them, as recorded in the biblical Book of Esther. Regular Esther. Yeah, because Esther pretended to be Persian, right? She married Xerxes, that king with all the chains around his neck and all that shit. I am kind, I am a god, all this sort of stuff on 300, that guy, right? His father was a great conqueror, but he just couldn't match him, right? And the Spartans and the Greeks kicked his butt, right? Okay, and this if you ever watched that supposed movie on Ishtar, you can see it on YouTube. A friend Mordekai, he's a great actor, I've forgotten his name, Brian something. He was her friend and he protected her and all that sort of stuff. Okay, according to the story, because this Haman wanted to get rid of all the Jews, exterminate the Jews, Haman cast lots to determine the day upon which he exterminated Jews. Purim is celebrated annually according to the Hebrew calendar on the 14th day of the Hebrew month of Adar. It's another month of the Hebrews. It's probably a preparation day. Okay, maybe. The day following the victory of the Jews over their enemies, Purim begins at sundown on the previous secular day. Yeah, because the Assyrians at that time were quite cruel to them, and they wouldn't allow them to do their the Babylonians or the Assyrians to do their religious traditions, etc., etc. But then Darius, led, pushed by God, conquered Babylon, took all these Jews, freed all these Jews, took them to Persia, and basically said, do your thing. Every other religion that was there, do your thing, you're free to do it, right, etc., etc. So they paid tribute to that particular king. You can see it on the wall reliefs. They walked up the stairs and gave him gifts and all that sort of stuff. He says, thank you, thank you, thank you. Purim begins at sundown on the previous secular date. In cities that were protected by a surrounding wall at the time of Joshua, including Shushan, Susa, and Jerusalem, Purim is celebrated on the 15th of the month, known as Shushan Purim. Purim is characterized by public recitation of the Book of Esther, Kiryat ha-Megillah, giving mutual gifts of food and drink, Mishloch Manot, giving charity to the poor, Matanot la-Eviyam, and celebratory meal, etc., etc. Other customs include drinking wine, wearing of masks and costumes, and public celebration. So in Persia, as we said, they were very grateful to that Darius, or Cyrus, I think it was Cyrus, for freeing them from Babylon and allowing them to do their religious traditions, customs, because they hadn't done it for so long. Because there's that song, by the rivers of Babylon, we sat down in there, we wept. We remember Babylon, because they couldn't do their rituals, their religion, their traditions, their custom, etc. Okay, so now here's the reason for the celebration. Jewish exiles from the kingdom of Judah, who had been living in the Babylonian captivity, 6th century BCE, found themselves under Persian rule after Babylonia was in turn conquered by Cyrus the Great, that's the one, king of the Persians and Medians, and found of the Persian Empire, who, according to the biblical Book of Esther, released them from captivity and allowed those that wished to return to Jerusalem, giving them back the money which Nebuchadnezzar II had carried away from Jerusalem. According to the Book of Esther, Haman, royal vizier to King Ahasuerus, they reckon that's Xerxes, the guy from the king that was in the Persian king that was confronted Leonidas and said, in the hunchback, and says, I am kind, I am a god, all that sort of stuff, that's him there. But they're sort of like trying to verify if that was actually him, right? This Ahasuerus was the Persian name of the son of Cyrus, Xerxes. Okay. The king planned to kill the Jews, but his plans were foiled by Esther, Ahasuerus' queen. Mordekai, He married her not knowing she was a Jew. Mordekai, a palace official, cousin and foster parent of Esther, subsequently replaced Haman. The Jews were delivered from being the victims of an evil decree against them and were instead allowed by the king to destroy the enemies, and the day after the battle was designated as a day of feasting and rejoicing. Yeah, in that movie Haman was killed or something like that. He was found out and killed. Okay, there's the Book of Esther. Goes on about the Book of Esther. We can do part 2 of that if we look at the Americanized Bible version of it. Okay, he says, now after hearing the story, did you not notice something missing? Where are the reference to the Most High? Remember, it's got remember, and the reference to the Passover. You see the Most High's name everywhere. You will not find one reference to the Father in the whole Book of Esther. Yeah, apparently it doesn't really, that's true, it doesn't talk about God a lot or at all. Yet the Jews in the state of Israel are celebrating victory. Viceroy. It looks like if you had an E, there'd be Viceroy. Yeah, this guy hasn't spell checked his work. Over there, enemies on the full moon of the month of Adar. Now the question he has is, why do we see reference to the Most High no less than 7 times in his reading of the Passover, but not once in the whole Book of Esther? That's just how it was. It was all about Esther and their king, right, and Mordekai and what was going on there. Yeah? Or maybe they didn't really dwell on it much, or somebody's cut it down because they don't really want a book on a woman, right, being all male-dominated world, sexist, etc. Who knows? Why do we only see Esther's obedience to Mordekai? Well, that's her adopted uncle or something, isn't it? It's way up here somewhere. Up here somewhere. Palace official, cousin and foster parent of Esther. Okay, so who really looked after her. You can see it on that movie. I think his name's Brian Blessed, the English guy that plays Mordekai on that movie. Okay, why do we see Esther's obedience to Mordekai? She is not asking for the intervention from Ahiyah. Also in this story we are told that the tribe of Benjamin and the Jews were being threatened, but there is a problem. If you remember, Cyrus, the king of Persia, was cool with the Hebrews. Yeah, he was driven by God to go and do this for these Hebrews. Yeah. Now we know that it was not King Xerxes, the son of Cyrus, that sent out this alleged decree, but still at this time the temple was rebuilt and the Hebrews were okay. They're not sure. This is like a translated name, right? Probably from some other language record. Okay, but they're trying to figure out over time, was this supposed Xerxes the one who set out to conquer Greece and fought the Spartans, right? Killed off the Spartans. That's what these theologians are trying to verify. Okay, because his Persian name, right, is Ahasuerus. So could this Xerxes be a Greek name, right? A Greek rendition of that Persian name, huh? Xerxes. You'd have to look up online who this King Xerxes was. But as far as we can remember, they're doing research on it, trying to define or find that this Xerxes was definitely that Persian. What's his name? Ahasuerus. Ask a Persian. Yeah, they'll be able to tell you. As it reads, thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth hath Yahuwah, the Yah of heaven, given me, and he hath charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whosoever there is among you of all his people, may Yahuwah his Elohim be with him. Let him go there. 2 Chronicles 36:23. This was when Cyrus allowed the building of the second temple. Okay. Here is something from the web. Okay. Now when we read the Book of Esther, a decree is sent to kill all the Jews, but it never mentions the temple of the tribe of Yehuda, the Levites, nothing, not one mention of the house of Jacob, and not one reference to the Most High Yah. So the point he wants to make, this narrator or this writer, is this: if the holy day is to be observed equal to the Passover, then the whole house of Jacob should be involved. Now the reason why the whole house is not involved is this. Now listen, it was 478 BC, 144 years before the invasion of Alexander the Great. The house of Israel was already taken into captivity in 722 BC. The house of Yehuda was taken into captivity in 586 BC. The other tribes of Jacob were already distributed almost the nations 300 years earlier. Okay. English is bad, the writing is bad, spelling is bad, so there might be some confusion there. When you hear the word Jew, they are talking about Yehuda or the Yehudai. When you hear the house of Israel, they are speaking about everyone. Now it should be the house of Jacob, but that's another story. Okay. Okay, then it gets a bit anti-Semite there. Okay, okay, this, yeah, the Yehudai or the Yehuda, or the Judeans, they took their name from the first letters of that name, right? And at some point in the English, they were referred to as Jews, probably Middle Ages or something like that. And in the Chinese and the Germans have a word very similar. Germans have Juden, Juden, and I think the Chinese might have one like Yuden. We read the other day, right? Which basically sounds the same, right? It means Jew. Okay. So yeah, these original Jews were the Yehudai. Right. Go look at Tacitus, his histories, etc., etc. Go do your personal research on that. The native-born Aramaic translator Victor N. Alexander actually mentions that they took that name, that Jew, that reference, from the first letters of their name. Okay, and it came about possibly in the 16th century or middle century, something like that. Middle Ages, sorry. Again, do your personal research on that. If we found it again on his website, we would show it to you. Okay, the house of Israel is the main tribe. All the others are like, tribes of that one conglomeration, right? Okay, yeah, that's the thing with the Book of Esther. It's all about a woman and a king she married, and that she pretended to be a Persian because of the persecution of the Jews, and Mordekai helped her out. Okay, so first, who is Esther and Mordekai? We just did that, covered that. Why is the worship of the moon so important to the usurpers called Jews? Okay, well, it's a traditional thing. Okay, what are you saying? They're snakes? Okay, what they're saying is based on Revelations, where it says, we know those who call themselves Jews but are not, they are of the synagogue of Satan. So what it's saying is there's a temple or a synagogue or a congregation, okay, who are calling themselves Jews, but they really are not. Probably the Pharisees, who were Persian, okay, they weren't Jews. So these poor Jews get blamed for the death of Christ when it was these Pharisees, Persian Jews, right, when they're free from Persia, etc. Okay, we're going to finish that video here because someone's knocking on my door.